Um, so we would like to offer a land acknowledgement to begin our work today. Those of us gathering virtually from Minnesota Makoche occupy the rightful lands of Indigenous nations, including Dakota, Lakota, and Ojibwe peoples, as does the entire University of Minnesota system. Minnesota Makoche holds special meanings, historical, spiritual, and personal, to Indigenous people, who are the traditional and present stewards of this land, having lived here since time immemorial. We affirm and commit to advocating for the sovereignty of these nations on the land on which we virtually gather and beyond, and to hold our institutions accountable to Native peoples. We also commit to educating ourselves and others to better understand Indigenous rights, cultures, and lifeways towards a more sustainable and harmonious society.
So we would also like to do a statement of solidarity, and we would like to acknowledge that there are a lot of things happening right now in the world: the ongoing violence in Ukraine, pervasive anti-Blackness across legal, political, and educational institutions, and violence against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, especially Asian American and Pacific Islander women, which reflects the racism and sexism ingrained in our society. And line 3 also brings violence against Ojibwe people, especially Indigenous women, their treaty lands, and their sacred food, Minomen. We recognize sustainability cannot be separated from justice work by recognizing ongoing systemic injustices. We would like to say that building intercultural understanding and relationships is one of the best things that we can do during this time, and we understand that each of us processes these losses in different ways, and so we want to thank you for your participation so far and your continued efforts for social and environmental justice in our communities. We at the Institute on the Environment and the UMN Energy Club stand in solidarity with those who are affected by ongoing oppression and are committed to advancing an equitable, just, and sustainable future.
Thank you, Olivia and Ella. Today's schedule, we're going to start at noon with our first breakout session. So those will be student presentations, followed with more at 1:15, and our panel discussion at 2:30. I hope that many of you are able to stick around or come back for the panel. I think it'll be really interesting. We'll be joined by Bulawa Asa, Amy Frederigill, and Zamzam Muse to talk about various topics related to environmental justice. And if you're a presenter, I hope you can stick around until 3:40 for the awards and thank you as well. And everything will be happening in this same Zoom link, so you don't have to go anywhere. And if you need to leave, you can just return back to the same link. We'd also like to thank our various co-sponsors across the U of M system for helping us promote the event and contact judges and students to present, as well as people to attend. And then a couple of announcements for any students who might be listening or anyone listening who might know some students who could be interested. Right now we're taking nominations for Student Impact Awards. And those are due April 6th, but it's essentially an opportunity to recognize any individual undergraduate, graduate, or student group on any UMN campus who's made a significant contribution to creating a more sustainable future. And there are some cash awards available. And more information can be found at that Z link at the bottom of the slide. Another opportunity coming up for students on the Twin Cities campus is the Green Careers event, which will be hosted next Thursday in person from 2 to 5 p.m. This is a good opportunity if you're interested in exploring a green career. There will be different local professionals, student groups, as well as others from the Twin Cities campus there. So it's kind of a networking opportunity and a chance to learn more about professional opportunities in sustainability. And it's hosted by Net Impact and 365 Green, which are 2 student groups here on campus. Another announcement for students on the Twin Cities campus, some classes that we're offering next fall. SAS 3003 is a really good introductory sustainability course if you're looking for something else to add to your schedule. It's also a required elective for the sustainability studies minor. So if you're interested in taking and learning more about sustainability and taking some courses, this is a good one to start off with. Also, SUS 4004, Sustainable Communities, that's the capstone for the Sustainability Studies minor that's offered on the Twin Cities campus, and another good opportunity to get kind of a more hands-on look at sustainability, since students in this class work in projects, and I think even might be taking a field trip in the fall session. So that could be a good opportunity as well if you have room in your schedule. And finally, SUS 4096. Mary, I don't want to put you on the spot, but since you teach this course, if you want to give it a quick plug, you can feel free.
Sure. Then we offer, we have some pre-identified internships, as well as we support students who have other internships already pre-identified. And it's a variable credit class, and I welcome any questions if students have questions about this class, SUS 4096. Thanks.
All right, we've gotten through our introductory material a little faster than expected. So I don't know, maybe we can kind of give it a pause for a few minutes. I don't want to rush any of our presenters who weren't expecting to be asked to present until noon, but maybe at 11:57 or so, I know Piper has some opening instructions or explanations for how the session will run. And we'll also give our judges an opportunity to introduce themselves. So yeah, we can take some time to get ready for that. But thank you again for being here, to the people listening and the people presenting, the people judging, and our panelists, and of course, all the people who helped organize the event as well. And if you have questions, if you're an attendee and you have questions during presentations or at any point, feel free to just type them into the chat.
If we have any of our judges joining us earlier, you'll be promoted to being a panelist, so that, and then we'll be inviting you shortly after noon to introduce yourself, so that the students who'll be presenting to you will know who you are.
I noticed in the chat we have a request to go back to the Green Careers event. Piper, could you move back a few slides? I think that Z link there at the bottom of the slide, Green Careers Student, is a good place to go to learn more. Otherwise, the location is here. I think you can just show up and there will be people there to talk with. I know a lot of students have been putting a lot of work into organizing this, and I think it's going to be a really useful and fun event. So I definitely encourage students checking it out if you're available next Thursday afternoon. Thanks, Olivia, for the handle in the chat. And if anybody has more to add about any of the other opportunities like the Impact Awards, or any of the courses, feel free to share that now while we have a moment too.
I might embarrass Jess here, give a shout out to Jess, because this is her 4th year supporting this event. So yeah, I just want to do an appreciation. She's worked super hard in general at IONI. So yeah, just a quick shout out.
Thank you, Christina. It's a big team effort though. A lot of people put a lot of work into this, so, and I really appreciate all of them for all their time, especially the Energy Club. This wouldn't be as unique of an event if we didn't have the support from the Energy Club, and the partnership from the Energy Club every year to put it together. I think we're at 11:56. I don't know, Piper, whenever you're ready to go, we can probably start with explanations and introductions for the first session.
Okay, great. So it's going to be time. Oops. Okay, it's about to be time to start all of our presentations for the first session. So just some information for all of our presenters. Before it's your time to speak, you're going to be promoted to be a co-host on the Zoom session. So then you'll have the ability to turn on your camera and mute yourself. So if you could do that when it's your time to speak, and then obviously unmute yourself when you're over or when you're done with speaking, that would be amazing. And if you would like to, you can click on the 3 dots on your section of your Zoom to put your pronouns in your bio, just so we are all clear on that for everybody. And we will be recording this session, just so you know. So that's not a surprise for you guys. You guys will have 3 to 5 minutes for your lightning talks, and then I believe 5 minutes for questions. And someone will be monitoring in the chat. So when your time is about to run up, if you're going overtime, there'll be a message sent to you in the chat. So just if you're able to keep an eye on that. And before we start, we would like to introduce our judges. So if any of our judges would want to come on camera and introduce themselves, that would be amazing.
They might need to be added as panelists. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was wondering earlier.
So yes, if you're a judge, you should momentarily be promoted to panelist and have the ability to turn your video on and unmute yourself.
Okay, I will start then. Hi, my name is Shimo Tsutomu Shimotori. I am an assistant professor at UMD Chemical Engineering Department.
Thank you. Any other judges? I don't know if everybody's here yet. If not, we can just get started too.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jose Rocha. I work with Mortensen Construction. I am a PV design engineer within solar and emerging renewables, and I'm very happy to be a part of this. I recall it wasn't too long ago that I was also presenting my research, so really excited to see what you guys have to show. Thanks.
Great. Thanks for coming out.
Is Eric Wojcik here?
I think he is not here at the moment.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and get started, and Eric Wren, if you don't mind reaching out to Eric to see if he's having any technical issues. Thanks.
Okay. So our first presenter is going to be Ella Rawald, and with her piece, The Providence of Profit.
Hi, I'm Ella Roderwald, and I'm an undergraduate student studying at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. And today I'll be talking about my environmental justice photo montage piece titled The Providence of Profit. I was inspired to create this piece after reading a quote from Karen Bell's article from the Harvard Astrophysics Database, which I'll read right now. She said, quote, "There is an apparent propensity for capitalist processes to exacerbate rather than reduce environmental problems and inequities," end quote. After reading that, I immediately thought of the blue marble photo taken by the crew on the Apollo 17 spacecraft. The image of Earth being completely alone in space sparked a lot of environmental and climate justice movements in the 1970s. And in lieu of that, I mimicked that iconic image in The Providence of Profit to call viewers to reflect on their own relationship with what and how they consume and how that relates to grand global challenges. Each component of this piece, including the stars in the background, were originally cut from pages in history and art books from thrift stores that were then scanned, uploaded, digitally modified, and individually cut out on Photoshop. This sustainable medium was intentional as it was repurposing what might otherwise be considered trash and reflects my message about sustainable action. The piece's name came from reflections on what it means for consumerism, a deeply rooted social bearing in today's age, to be what is quote unquote divinely guiding humanity's destiny. People who have the privilege to do so can, in a sense, vote with their dollars, determining how businesses, corporations, and the general public might interact with and affect social, environmental, and animal health. The name is also ironic since another definition of provident is making timely preparations for the future, which is not exactly the case, as there are many ways in which humans are exceeding the limit of what the earth can sustainably provide. Hi. Okay. Okay. According to the Global Footprint Network's national footprint and the biocapacity accounts, humanity is using an equivalent of 1.75 Earths worth of resources to use and regenerate from overharvesting, fishing, foresting, and to sequester carbon and other wastes, with most Americans using upwards of 5.1 Earths worth of resources. Round cuts were utilized to give a sense of blend and coherency throughout all the components, and since the point of this piece is to express the connection between individual purposes and their effects on the global scale. Humanity has had so much of an impact on the Earth that we've incited the sixth mass extinction, and our activity is appearing in geological records, so much so that a new geological epoch has been proposed called the Anthropocene. In truth, no one person is responsible for the world or the way that it is. However, there are ways that we can try to work towards environmental justice, acknowledging that we cannot have environmental justice without social, climate, racial, animal, and many other justices. And so my hope with the Providence of Profit is to convey to viewers that there are indeed ways to approach large issues like the intersection of consumerism and climate justice. And one of the most productive of which being to simply take a step back and recognizing how we as individuals fit into these global issues and deciding what our capacity to engage with them is. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ella. So now we're going to open up for a Q&A section. So if anybody has questions, you can put them in the chat.
And for judges, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask Ella questions.
I'm sorry for asking an ignorant question, but is this the format of this year's Expo, showing the one-page slide and then explain the concept around that picture, or is this just what Ella chose?
Yeah, so I did the creative work. So I'm just explaining my creative work. There are different talks. There's a lightning talks where people might have slides, or posters for small groups. So people will be explaining their posters like there. So like there's different formats.
Oh, I see. Thank you. Yeah, I love the artwork though. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, I got muted there, so I don't know if hopefully I unmuted quickly, so I don't know that I didn't miss anything, but yeah.
Are there any other questions for Ella? Or we can move on to the next presenter. Okay, on. So the next person we have, I'm sorry, I'm saying this wrong, Serna Zafirovska, and they will be doing a presentation about the SDG policy brief.
Hi everyone, can you all see me? I hope you can. So my name is Serna Zafirovska, you can call me Serna. I will present to you a policy brief that I did last semester on the SDG 4, titled SDG 4, Rethinking Relevance in Education. Next slide, please. So what are the SDGs? The SDG Sustainable Development Goals, I'm sure many of you have heard, but just in case, it's a 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development adopted in 2015 by the United Nations and its member states. The whole agenda is consisted of 17 goals that you can see on the screen here. Each goal has a specific targets and indicators for its implementation, and I inserted a quote from the United Nations in order to stress how important the goals and targets are. So it says that the goals and targets will stimulate action over the next 15 years in areas of critical importance for humanity and the planet. So the targets and goals are, and the targets and indicators are what guides these goals. So can you please go on to the next slide? Thank you. Okay, so I will be focusing on SDG 4, which is quality education. So SDG 4 tries to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all by 2030. The SDG 4 has set seven measurable targets in total that support quality, inclusive education worldwide. However, this policy brief addresses those targets referencing education skills in particular. Next slide, please. Okay, so targets and indicators. I want to say that this slide in particular I compiled both the targets and the indicators. You can see the original there on I left like the link in the SDGs site. But yeah, just so I can give you a better general sense of the targets and indicators and save on space. So target 4.1 stresses the importance of boys and girls completing primary and secondary education and obtaining 2 relevant learning outcomes. These are literacy, reading literacy, and mathematics. And target 4.4 promotes teaching youth and children relevant skills such as information and communications technology, ICT. This target in particular was developed specifically for the job market. So children can grow up and get jobs in information communications technology. And then target 4.6 emphasizes the need for youth and adults to achieve at least a fixed level of proficiency in functional literacy and numeracy. And target 4.7 mentions mainstreaming of skills for sustainable development that includes gender equality and human rights. Can you go on to the next slide, please? Okay, so did you notice a pattern? So according to the SDG 4, quality education or relevant education is mathematics, technology, reading, writing, and I have plus human-centric sustainable development education. So target 4.7 is really interesting because it's the only target that highlights the attainment of knowledge and skills related to sustainable development. However, it lacks clarity in indicating particular ecological aspects and revolves around human-centric topics while excluding biocentric ideals. And yeah, so I thought this was really interesting to add, and you'll see what's important in the following slides. So why is this a problem? There is a very big misalignment with the other SDG goals. It is laudable that the SDGs project advocates for climate change, building sustainable and clean environments, and conserving wildlife. However, none of this is reflected in the education targets and indicators. And sustainability begins with education. So conducting a relevant, high quality scientific research and sharing the findings with decision makers is not enough to solve complex environmental and conservation issues. And yeah, it is not just up to scientists to address ecological concerns, and environmental literacy needs to be at the forefront. So we can go to the next slide. So it's time to narrow down environmental literacy because it's a very broad concept encompassing many themes. And we can go into the next slide. I need to hurry this up. So I chose particularly animal welfare and food sustainability. I propose these topics because they are relevant to all countries and all societies in the world, and specifically, yeah, and they are almost non-existent in formal education and are mostly only addressed by NGOs. We can go on to the next slide. So animal welfare, education on animal welfare can help solve 2 main issues related to animal suffering in the world, which is poaching of wild animals and abuse of domestic animals. So we know that, 1 million species, this is from the 2020 Living Planet Index that says that biodiversity loss is at its peak, with 1 million species being threatened with extinction over the coming decades to centuries. And the causes of animal extinction are numerous. However, the 2 main factors constitute the destruction of natural habitats by human-induced destruction, and also poaching. And I have this, I don't know if I have time, but quickly I want to say that poaching occurs worldwide, and it's very, worldwide. But for the purpose of this policy brief, I chose, of course, the most prominent is the African continent due to the high demand for ivory possessed by elephants and rhinos. Vincent Barkis, who is a founder of the anti-poaching unit in Kruger National Park, has worked with many African communities to uncover the drive behind such high level of poaching. And he concludes that poaching results from the complete lack of empathy and appreciation for animals. And upon this discovery, Barkis has worked very closely with poachers, hoping to establish a connection between animals and humans. In an interview, he stated that working with communities and the actual poachers has saved more wildlife than any guard with a gun in the bush. And this is really powerful for education. It really speaks to the sustainability of the SDGs, and it should definitely be included in education. And then to move to the more domestic front, which is abuse of domestic animals. So many cases of animal cruelty are of neglect and abandonment due to lack of acknowledgement of appropriate care and specific species welfare needs. And I believe this is really important to include in the SDGs because the SDGs focus on human-centric, and that's a word I use a lot, and it's human rights. So I think that if you include human rights in SDGs, it's only automatic that you should include animal rights as well, considering they are living organisms and we should care for them. So if you can move on to the next slide, please. I'm sorry, this is taking a bit longer. Okay, so education on food sustainability. Food sustainability education through garden-based, it's mostly done through garden-based learning, which is essentially school gardens, school-owned gardens. And this can aid the realization of at least 3 other SDG goals. SDG, where did it go? Okay, SDG 2, which is zero hunger. So garden-based learning can help fight food insecurity experienced in low-income communities by incorporating student-grown crops into cafeteria menus, making fresh, healthy food local and affordable. And SDG 3, which is good health and well-being. School gardens positively affect outlook and behaviors of research has shown that, this is not me speaking, research has shown that school gardens positively affect outlook and behaviors of 3rd and 4th grade students toward vegetables and help to instill long-lasting healthy eating habits. And SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. Another research and an educational intervention, sorry, there's a spelling mistake, in Bavaria found that students who were taught to be responsible consumers intended to consume in more environmentally friendly ways. And we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So this is how it would look like. Sorry, I realized that when I was preparing for this presentation that I made a lot of mistakes here. I will walk you through it. So this is what it could look like. It's just an example that I created. So target 4.1, for example, could be stresses the importance of boys and girls completing primary and secondary education and obtaining, it's supposed to say 3 relevant learning outcomes, reading and environmental literacy and mathematics. And then the indicator for this target would be, for example, ensure children have basic understanding of humane animal treatment and ensure children can grow 5 varieties of crops by the end of primary school, for example. And yes, and then maybe target 4.7 could add animal rights in tandem with human rights as well. And the next slide. So yeah, this is the final slide. Thank you for bearing with me. So this is for all the policymakers out there in education and educators to remember that education is more than just certification for the job market. It's about building the mindset of the future. Thank you so much. I have a thank you in the next slide, if you can show. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Serna. Are there any questions?
Perhaps we could start with questions from the judges.
Can I just say thank you for the support in the chat? I appreciate it.
If there are no questions from the judges, maybe we can open up to all the participants as well. Okay, there's one question from Ella that says, what type of educational tools or topics would you like to highlight as being the most impactful?
That's a really good question. I think about more of topics, which is what I've just presented, the animal welfare and food sustainability, but I never actually considered tools because this is my first year and I wrote this in the first semester and kind of never got to that point. So yeah, there are a lot of tools. I can't answer that question because I've never thought about it. That's very interesting. Actually, when I think about it by tools, something that comes to my mind right now, it's specifically in my country. This is related to the animal welfare one. So in my country, there is no pause sessions, and I know that at the University of Minnesota there is. So maybe, and there are a lot of stray dogs in Minnesota, in Macedonia, my country. So maybe if animal shelters could group and combine their efforts with dog trainers, for example, and they could, create jobs. I know it might sound a little bit weird, but jobs for the, dogs, and they could go into elementary schools, and that could be part of the lesson of how to establish positive connection between children and animals from a very young age. And yeah, that's kind of one tool I came up with right now. But other than that, thank you for the question, because I'm going to think about that next time I'm presenting.
Great, thank you. And then Eric was wondering, he says that he thinks the what is here, but similar to Ella's point, he'd love to know more about the how and how this could be a great follow-up to the research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay. I think I gotta think about the how. Okay, one thing I can think about is that right now that I said, maybe like have visitation hours, also school gardens. Depends on the budget of the schools, but I believe if countries can get funding from the SDGs, which is supposed to be done in order to realize the SDG 4 goal, they could have funding for school gardens, and then have some sort of environmental education curriculum. They do exist. So have this curriculum, and then it's also, education is such a complex environment, and you have to think about teacher education as well. So there would have to be programs that train teachers to teach environmental education, but it is done, and I just have to put more thought into it next time and kind of start developing another presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. So if there's no last minute questions, we'll wrap this up. Thank you so much for your time. Oh, there's your references. Okay. So next up, we have Tevka Lachman, and she could actually she could not be here today. So we have a pre-recorded video from her I will show. Oh, and this is her artwork. So we can maybe take about 30 seconds to look at this, and then we can watch her video. Okay, I don't know how long that was, but I can start playing her video. Let's see.
Hi there, panelists and attendees. My name is Tevka Lachman, and I'm currently a sophomore here at the U, majoring in studio art. This work specifically is a watercolor piece titled Save Our Seas, and it aims to amplify the issue of ocean conservation. Our oceans specifically will continue to be impacted in terms of the changing climate. From filling ever faster with carbon to overfishing and massive amounts of pollution, our oceans are suffering, and as a result, so will we. I initially created this work for Earth Day last year, and I would love to make prints of it and donate a portion to Sea Shepherd or Oceana, or an ocean conservation fund of some kind. Art is essential to conservation efforts and it's key to reaching people. I'd then truly be able to use my passion to do good for our earth. One of my main goals as an artist is to capture the beauty of the natural world around us and convey the necessity of conservation. My means of communication is through my artwork. If people refuse to engage through words, I hope to reach them through another avenue, art. I believe most people do care, or at least have the capacity to, when it comes to climate change. Art is the means I use to convey the wonders of the world and the necessity of its preservation. The tides may be rising, but so can we. Thank you for listening to my artist statement. I hope you enjoy the piece and that maybe it resonates with you in some way. I really appreciate the ability to zoom in to the conference today. Thank you.
Okay, great. I hope everyone enjoyed watching that video. So since she couldn't be here with us today, we have sent her some questions in, and she will answer those on video now.
Hi there, Tevka again. My piece was called Save Our Seas, and here's my quick interview type question recap. So we've got 3 questions, and we're going to start out with, can you tell us about this artwork itself? What medium did you choose? Did you have an iterative process that brought you to this piece? So for this work, I initially wanted to make an Earth Day piece, and naturally was going to include the Earth in that for this one. And I wanted to place it on the whale specifically. We'll get to that more in the second question, but I wanted to do this one in watercolor because it is the ocean, so I thought it'd be cool to have that like quite literally represented in such a way, especially like watercolor when it comes to like the flows and like the layers in water underneath the ocean especially. Watercolor just made the most sense, and then going over top of it with my like very fun special silver pen to really make it pop. And I think it really did, like light coming through down under the ocean. And for our second question, I would like to hear more about how you chose the image of the whale with the earth resting on the whale's back. So getting to what I mentioned, I wanted to include the earth, but this was definitely a conscious decision because the ocean holds nearly half of all carbon in the atmosphere, and without it, we'd be in a much more dire place. The ocean, deep carbon and carbon storage in general, the ocean accounts for a lot of it. Just like our rainforest, the ocean literally is a carbon sink, and this definitely has repercussions when it comes to ice caps melting, for example. But I used the whale holding up the earth to signify all that the ocean does for us. It's somewhat like the rainforest is the lungs of our earth. So finally, for the third question, you mentioned that you hope that people who might not be able to engage through words might be reached through art. Where would you like Save Our Seas artwork to be available to reach that audience? This is definitely a good question. I did touch on that I wanted to possibly make prints of this piece. I think it'd be cool to do an Earth Day launch, donate some sales from the work to an ocean organization. That way it can really actually make some change. I have posted this on my Instagram. That's not a very large reach, but it is nice to have the share stories features, and it can get out there and circulate in different pools. No ocean pun intended. But yeah, I like making works that initially draw you in, so then you can get grabbed by it, and then hopefully take a closer look and connect with it more. So those were the 3 interview questions. I really appreciate the ability to zoom in today to the expo once again, and thank you for your time.
Okay, great. So that's it for Tevka. If anybody has messages for her, I'm sure you can reach out to any of us and we can send those along. It's great that she could still find a way to participate.
Hi there, Tevka.
Okay. And it looks like our next presenter might not be here at the moment, so we will move on to the next one. Let me go through this. Okay, so then the next one is a group. So we will have Ella back, and then add Anjali, Diego, Mia, and Rawan. And they have a poster about food sovereignty. So we can present that now.
Hello, again. So funded by the Healthy Foods, Healthy Lives Institute, a collaborative team of administrators, faculty, and students from the White Earth Tribal and Community College, or WETCC, are working with our IONI undergraduate leaders group, which are all the people that are presenting today, to build upon the existing WETCC Food Sovereignty Action Plan by composing a community engaged and informed food systems map. Our project focuses on food sovereignty, a food system centered around self-determination, equal access, and sustainability, and is a movement instrumental in addressing the global grand challenges of food security and equity. Upon completion, we hope to create an easily accessible website which can accentuate the conversations we've had with community members and be a central place for the WETCC, where they can continue to update with information regarding treaties, rights, and other factors to support a more economic, accessible, and sustainable food system for the entire community.
All right, next, can you guys hear me? Yes, okay.
Yes.
So next we're going to be talking about methodology. Our cohort is compiling information on Indigenous and traditional foods in a systems map, which we plan to use as an educational tool at conferences, other academic settings, and hopefully just for the general public. Our understanding of all the ingredients within our meal will be supported by two complementary approaches: conversations with community members and food sovereignty advocates, and conducting a comprehensive literature review of primary documents and writings by Indigenous authors and researchers. We had two of our members actually attend the Great Lakes Indigenous Farming Conference on the White Earth Reservation, and we have met through Zoom and phone call with several community members of White Earth to discuss their interpretations and ideas of a more equitable food system and how we can decolonize the diet.
For part of this project, me and Rowan went up to a conference up at White Earth, and my script is: we aimed to deepen our connection with the White Earth community and understand food sovereignty more from their perspective. Rowan and I traveled up north to attend the Great Lakes Indigenous Farming Conference. In the top right corner, you can see a photo of me and Rowan standing next to Ren and Rumbi, who Rumbi is part of this group, and Ren we carpooled up with. At the conference, we attended workshops all like the whole weekend. There was just workshops after workshops, and we did a lot of cool stuff, learned a lot, and we made some crafts, including some birch bark canisters and earrings. We made hominy and other traditional foods like a medicine soup, which was served out of that that cool food truck. And then we also just ate really good traditional meals like that image in the bottom right corner. And overall, the conference was extremely informative and pertinent for working on this food sovereignty project. We connected with community members and had a chance to see food sovereignty from the perspective of people who are actively working towards it every day. Rowan and I both left the conference feeling extremely grateful, with a new sense of community and a new understanding for food sovereignty.
And as part of our conversation that have answered questions about food sovereignty and its implementation, from how harvesting and hunting methods have been impacted in recent years, and how the White Earth community have addressed food insecurity by understanding the acquisition, usage, and significance of each ingredient in this meal. We hope to gain more insights into specific needs of the White Earth community and their food system. So as part of our progress, we have met with several members of the White Earth community to discuss and talk about their interpretation and ideas of a more and better equitable food system. We had interesting conversations that have answered questions about food sovereignty and its implementation, from how harvesting and hunting methods have been impacted in recent years due to pipelines and climate change, and how the White Earth community have addressed these food insecurity issues alongside methods that the community member were using to navigate the issue by advancing some of their traditional methods to make their harvesting more efficient and quantitative. Excuse me.
Yeah, so our end goal is to understand and support community perspectives on policy, traditions, cultural significance, and access to these ingredients, and ultimately to support the ability to create these dishes in the White Earth community today.
And it's really important to note that food sovereignty is not something only applicable in academics like settings such as these expos and symposia. Instead, we hope to apply our knowledge of the White Earth meals to future efforts in educating our peers and broader community on understanding the importance of the environmental, nutritional, and cultural benefits of eating a decolonized diet. We look forward to gaining more knowledge in the future as we communicate with more community members from White Earth and learn more information about Indigenous meals. And all this would not be possible without the White Earth community and their hospitality, the continued support of our mentor team, the Institute on the Environment, and the Healthy Foods, Healthy Lives Institute. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for presenting. You guys did great. We can open it up for the judges with any questions.
I have a question about this poster. In the findings section, it says, we hope this map can assist in the development. Do you have a separate map referred in this section? Or this poster itself is the map?
Yeah, so we're still in the process of having conversations with community members. So we are still compiling that map together as this research isn't finished yet. So we are organizing our information from these conversations into different categories, but the food map is meant to focus on specific ingredients such as venison, monomen, wujape, maple syrup, the Three Sisters, and connecting that with different policies and treaties that affect access, and making that information more succinct and accessible. So then, because in a lot of our conversations with, say, Stevie or Tally that we've had so far, those are community members, a large part that stops community members from going out and actually foraging for food or hunting is just not understanding the rights that they have, and so that's something that we hope that creating this food systems map and connecting these different components will help with.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. I think we still have a minute or two if there's any questions from the participants.
Can I ask a quick question?
Oh yes, that would be great.
Yeah, this is kind of a broad question. I'm just wondering, the students going into this project, if any of you would just want to volunteer, what was the most surprising thing that you learned coming out of this? What kind of really opened your mind in this process? Thanks.
I think for me, it's how Indigenous people are connected to the natural environment in a way that most of us have never experienced before. I remember in one of our conversations we had, I believe it was, I forget which community member it was, but they were telling us how that there was a really bad drought last year up north in Minnesota. And berries are a very important part of Indigenous diets. And because there was a drought, the berries couldn't grow, so they had a very limited supply of berries, and instead of taking these berries to eat themselves, they left it for the animals to have, which I think is just a really amazing way of thinking about the food system, not just of themselves, but also of the animals that live around them, and then also just caring for the overall ecosystem. And it was also interesting how someone mentioned that a lot of Native people don't believe that invasive species are a thing, which is another thing we could get into, but it's a lot of interesting things that I've learned, and I'm really grateful.
Great, thank you guys so much. That was very informative. So it looks like we might be going back to view Maggie's presentation quick. So we'll wrap this one up. But thank you. Okay. Okay, so this is Maggie's poster. I believe we will be taking about a minute to look at this and everyone can read through. Okay, hopefully everyone's had a chance to read through this a bit. I can give a little more time if people need it. But thank you to Joanna in the chat. She said that the key point of all of this is that wooden bee boxes are better. So I hope everybody learned a little bit from this one. We can move on to our next presenters. So our next group is Ranaji and Carly talking about food insecurity on campus.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Ranjini Hariharan, and our project today, our project that we'll be presenting about today is about destigmatizing food insecurity on campus and just kind of discussing ways that we can issue a call to action in regards to that. Okay, so in 2015, the United Nations adopted an agenda that involved 17 goals relating to sustainable development to drive progress towards a more sustainable and healthy future. And one of these goals was to end hunger and achieve food security. When looking at food insecurity as a whole, it is important to recognize the causes of the issue as well as the stigma surrounding it. Food insecurity has been defined as the lack of access to nutritious food, often caused by unemployment, poverty, and other socioeconomic factors. And as students at the University of Minnesota, we recognize that food insecurity isn't just some abstract concept that only exists in developing nations and rural communities, but on our college campus. According to the UMN's Food Resource Guide, around 17.4% of students on campus have actually expressed experiencing food insecurity and that they have been worried about whether they'll be able to buy more food before food runs out. And it's also important to note that on campus, there are actually not that many affordable grocery stores within walking distance, which is surprisingly not something that's discussed very much. But while there are some resources available to assist students, including food pantries and financial assistance programs, it's unclear as to whether or not students who require the assistance are able to seek it out without any hesitation. And I'll pass it off to Carly, my partner, for the next part.
Food insecurity has been an issue that has been stigmatized heavily. Along with internalized stigma that potentially prevents students from seeking out help, the social stigma surrounding food assistance aids in perpetuating a harmful narrative that there is shame associated with poverty and low income status. According to a study by the Urban Institute, teens and college students are less likely to participate in food assistance programs because of the stigma surrounding them. University of Minnesota students facing food insecurity could potentially feel embarrassment around their circumstances, So it's important to destigmatize them. Figuring out a way to destigmatize food insecurity and debunking the myth that food insecurity is a result of individual failings is essential to finding a way to end food insecurity on campus. When thinking about awareness and the role it plays in social impact, it's important to remember that awareness is crucial towards erasing the stigma surrounding any issue. Awareness about a social issue entails a solid understanding of the issue, its root causes, its impact, and most importantly, the willingness to learn more about what can be done to work towards solutions. With this in mind, spreading awareness about the causes and impacts of social insecurity or of food insecurity and the importance of working towards food security in the context of sustainable development will ultimately contribute towards decreasing the stigma associated with food insecurity. The question is, how do we effectively go about spreading awareness, and how can awareness translate into action? I'll pass it back to Ranjani.
Thanks, Carly. So our project focuses on spreading awareness surrounding the issue of food insecurity, specifically targeting the audience on the University of Minnesota's campus in an effort to call attention to the crucial nature of a problem that impacts so many of the student body. This would look like a series of informative tweets, perhaps, that address food insecurity and its relationship to sustainability, as well as its prevalence in our own communities. Communicating about this issue in small-sized pieces of information is a simple way to get a point across while also remaining engaging online. Social media campaigning is also a cost-effective and efficient way to send out information for the public eye to see and to issue a call to action. By educating individuals about the root causes of food insecurity, its impacts, as well as how working towards food security is a part of a larger plan to move towards a more sustainable and healthy future, perhaps we can also move towards a near future wherein food insecurity and poverty is not stigmatized, not normalized, but instead recognized by people who are willing to issue a larger call to action to put more resources into making nutritious food more accessible and more affordable for students on campus. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present today.
Great, thank you both so much. Oops, let's go back to this for a second. We can open up to our judges if there's any questions.
This is a kind of interesting presentation. Generally, like people would think that if people can afford to attend college, then they shouldn't probably have a problem with purchasing foods and stuff. But I wasn't aware of this problem, to be honest, on campus. There are, I see, a small number of people who actually have the food insecurity problem on campus. But my question is that, does the University of Minnesota have things like well, assisted or free meal program for students whose parents have low income or trouble kind of paying for the food? And have you heard of that kind of program?
Yes, I can take that question. Yes, the university does have food programs. One example of a food program that the university has is called Nutritious Pantry. It's a food pantry that is run on certain weeks of every month, where students can come to, I think it's usually held at the Union. Students can come pick up a limited number of grocery items. There are also other financial assistance programs available, but the main thing is that it's not necessarily a long-term solution. And so, yeah, I don't know if that kind of answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
I have a quick question. Do you have any data that kind of addresses, I guess, how many students are facing food insecurity by chance? Just curious about that.
Right. So the data that we have right now is unfortunately not recent. It's the latest figure that we have is around 17%. of students on campus that have expressed concerns about not having like the means to get food before their food runs out. That was like the figure that is on the UMN's website, the food resource guide. So we are not entirely sure where that number stands at right now currently, but that is like the general figure.
And something I also found too was like in colleges all over, it's about 1 in 5 students, which is pretty close to the University of Minnesota's figures that are out of date. So it's probably still somewhere around there if it compares to the country's average.
Great, thank you. And it looks like Eric has another question in the chat about interventions beyond awareness raising. Did you come across any mechanisms or examples for implementation that specifically addresses food insecurity on campus? Any that we can apply here?
So like Ranjani mentioned, like the university has the Nutritious Pantry, and there's I think that there's like shuttles too, like you could take the bus out to the grocery stores that are far away. But if students aren't willing to use the Nutritious Pantry because like of embarrassment or the stigma, like that's what our campaign is focusing on, is like getting rid of the stigma, and then hopefully more students will go to Nutritious U. And then right now it's only running, I think, once a month, which isn't really enough to get all of your groceries there. So I think in the future, like having more options, and Ranjani's actually gotten food there before, and I don't think it was super like nutritious. So
it was definitely my experience is that I would say that it's a great program, but unfortunately it's not is sustainable for a long term sort of solution, and it's definitely like I feel could use more resources in that area.
Great, thank you. And I think we have to wrap up pretty soon, but there's a question in the chat. If you want to answer that after, you are more than welcome to. But thank you both so much for presenting.
Thank you so much.
And then next we have Nicole Witt talking about sustainable material management in Minnesota.
Hi, sorry. 1 second. Okay. I'm ready when you guys are. Okay, so I'm Nicole Witt. I'm an undergraduate in sustainable systems management, and then my focus is energy systems. Below are my group members, so Haley, Carmen, Kelly, and Kylie. Unfortunately, they cannot be here to present with me, but today I'm talking about our capstone project, which we are working with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and it's on evaluating material waste and life of buildings. Ignore the next slide. Oh, there's none of the words on the slide. Oh, okay. You can just go to the end of it. It doesn't need to be. Okay, cool, sorry. So there are approximately 600 million tons of construction and demolition waste that were generated in 2018. And then there's nearly twice, that is twice as much as municipal solid waste that's produced. Our study's goal was to our studies aim to fill in current information gaps and costs associated with C&D waste management in Minnesota. The results will help inform future decision-making processes regarding material management options for buildings within the state of Minnesota. And then we looked at the Pomeroy Alumni Center on the St. Paul campus, if any of you are familiar with that building. It was renovated in 2007, and so all of our calculations were based on the renovations that were done. And we had to like evaluate all of the materials and stuff, so it was quite a big undertaking. You can go to the next slide. Oh, and then you can keep going next until all of the words go. Okay, so there are currently 3 end-of-life material management plans for like a building. So demolition, deconstruction, and restoration. Demolition is the most common when you're looking at completely tearing down a building. Most of the material goes to landfill when you're completely demolishing a building, and there's a lot of particle emissions associated with that, as well as greenhouse gas emissions. Restoration is also a common option if you want to preserve the history of a building and bring it up to code for an intended purpose. The lesser known option is deconstruction, which is kind of what we were looking to promote in our project, which deals with deconstructing the building so that you can salvage materials from that building for later use. Yeah, and then next slide. Okay, so this slide is an overview of our final results. Can you go next? I think the economic costs will pop. There we go. Okay, so on the right, under the economic costs, we can see the approximate estimation for each material management method, with renovations being around 7 million, deconstruction about 200,000, and then demolition coming in at 115,000. Based on these values, we can see that deconstruction is technically more than demolition. But if we look at tax benefits and available grants for deconstruction, one of the groups that we worked with was called Birch Group, and they are like a deconstruction firm in Minnesota. And they talked about how there's a lot of tax benefits associated with donating the salvage materials to nonprofits. In addition to available grants, I think it was 5,000 for residents and then up to 10,000 for commercial products or commercial projects. And so then below that, the greenhouse gas emissions for each of these methods was calculated using the WARM model, and they are measured in metric tons of CO2 equivalent. So they're negative because this was the whole thing with our project. They're negative because when you're deconstructing or you have materials, they're like accounting for the carbon within the materials that's sequestered within the materials. And so the more negative, the better the value. So deconstruction, which wasn't shocking, came out like as the top because they're using materials, reusing the materials within the building. Some of our project challenges was defining our scope because we had a big building. If you've ever seen the Pomeroy Alumni Center, it's pretty big. We did not include like the furnishings in that building, like the lights, the tables, all of that stuff, because that was a whole thing to calculate. I didn't get like an appraisal because that was really hard to do for like the materials in that building that are salvageable, hence why deconstruction is more than demolition, because that's another massive undertaking. And a lot of times they do account for furnishings in the building, which we didn't. And so then our results for our project was that we recommended deconstruction because despite it being more in the chart above, when you account for like the tax benefits and the grants, it is less than that. And then it was a note that this is just a framework for assessing future buildings. It is not a one recommendation that fits all. Then you can go to the next slide quickly, and that's just a thank you for, these are all the people that we corresponded with. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks, Nicole. Are there any questions from our judges?
Should I read the question out loud or just respond to the one in the chat?
Oh, I just saw that. You can read it out loud.
Okay. It says, this is interesting. Do you find that there are many firms involved in deconstruction? Because I wonder if this is often even floated as an option for future development. I'd be surprised if the contractors even necessarily know much about this or opportunities inherent in it. And yeah, that's an interesting point because so we've talked with, there's two deconstruction firms in Minnesota that we like kind of knew about, which was Better Futures and then Birchwood. Better Futures is one of the better known ones, but we were talking more with Birchwood and they were saying that one of their biggest struggles is to get word out about deconstruction Because right now they have like the manpower to do it, but they need more projects involved, and you have to kind of get like a ton of like appraisers on board, and then you have to have like if someone's looking at end life of a building, they have to know that it's an option, or the person that they're talking with has to like recommend this option. So it's kind of weird because there are a lot of benefits, and like it can even be cheaper than demolition. And so it is, but they also need to balance labor with it. So like they can't grow faster than the labor pool grows, because you need to have a whole amount of people trained to be able to deconstruct these buildings. But it's a really interesting way of like using this to salvage materials so that we're not like wasting so much. And yeah, they do have some incentives on the government level. So they have like this grant program that can give up to $5,000 for residents, and then it was $10,000 for commercial buildings, but you have to be eligible for it. Thanks.
I have a question. So when you deconstruct a building, and how can you sell, or what kind of materials can you actually sell, and then via what kind of channels?
Yeah, so oftentimes like the homeowner isn't the one that's selling the materials, so they end up like they hire a firm. So like Birch Group comes in, they do all the evaluations of that building, and then they get like an appraiser to estimate the salvage potential of different materials. So like lumber is a big one that's really sought after, and like hardwood, like certain lighting fixtures, or like historical, like there's a door that's like special or something, or there's like specialized fixtures within the house. Those can often be like sold because there's a market for them, but it really relies on like the fact that there's a market for the building or for the material. So the estimations are kind of done, like it's done before to get the tax benefits. It's done before they actually like have the materials and sell them. And so like it's kind of one of those things where it really depends on where you are and what the market's looking at right now, and like how much they have of that material. But yeah, they go in and they assess everything, and then those materials get donated automatically to the deconstruction firm. That's like the part of the process. And then the homeowner gets the tax benefits or the grant or whatever they got from that. And sometimes the tax benefits are like, or the credits are better than demolition. Like you can make money off of it sometimes, which is crazy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully that answered your question.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I'll go back. So I messed this up. Okay, my Wi-Fi went out and I think I messed up the slides a lot. So I have to go back. Okay.
I think you're going the wrong way, Piper.
Oh shoot. Okay. I was going back. Okay. I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were about to go on break.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, perfect.